The scalpel slipped from the doctor's gloved hand, clattering against the sterile tile like a gunshot in the hushed delivery room, as the first wail of the newborn pierced the air too raw, too familiar, echoing the cries Mason had buried deep in his own childhood memories. Elena, sweat slicked and trembling on the gurney, locked eyes with him across the chaos, her whisper barely audible over the beeping monitors. "It's not what you think, but it's everything you fear." In that frozen instant, as the nurse swaddled the tiny, squirming form and placed it in Mason's shaking arms, the world tilted. The baby's eyes, those piercing hazel depths, weren't from any anonymous donor. They were Liam's, staring back at him like a ghost from a lie Mason never saw coming. Mason Hargrove had always believed that money could buy anything except the one thing he craved most: a family that looked back at him without the shadow of rejection. At 35, he was the golden boy of Wall Street, the wunderkind who'd turned a scrappy fintech startup into a billion-dollar empire. His face splashed across Forbes covers and his loft in Tribeca the envy of every hedge fund bro from Battery Park to the Hamptons. But behind the tailored Tom Ford suits and the crystal decanters of single malt scotch, Mason was a man adrift. His coming out at 18 a quiet rebellion that had severed ties with his Bible Belt parents faster than a margin call in '08. Gay in a world that still whispered deviant under its breath. He'd built walls higher than the Freedom Tower, dating models and actors who came and went like quarterly reports, fleeting, forgettable, never sticking around for the vulnerability of breakfast in bed. It was a rainy Tuesday in October when the idea crystallized. Born from a cocktail party at the Standard where champagne flutes clinked like hollow promises. Mason stood on the rooftop, the Manhattan skyline blurring in the downpour, nursing a gin and tonic while a silver-haired venture capitalist droned on about legacy. "Kids, Mason," the man slurred, clapping him on the back. "They're the only ROI that doesn't crash." The words lodged like a splinter. That night, alone in his king-sized bed with sheets that smelled of lavender and loneliness, Mason fired up his laptop and dove into the labyrinth of surrogacy agencies. IVF, donor sperm, gestational carriers, it all sounded so clinical, so American, like ordering takeout from Seamless but for a human life. He wanted a son, someone to teach the art of the deal, to share Sunday roasts and stories of the grandfather who'd disowned him for loving men. The agencies were a parade of polished brochures and NDAs thicker than a prenup. But Mason, ever the contrarian, wanted something real, unfiltered. That's how he found Elena Vasquez. Not through a glossy website, but a gritty Reddit thread in r/surrogacy support, where desperate stories collided like rush hour taxis on the FDR. Homeless mom of two, 28, healthy, seeking ethical arrangement. NYC area. DM for details. Her profile pic was grainy. A tired smile under stringy brown hair, eyes like polished chestnuts that had seen too many evictions. Mason messaged her at 2 a.m., his thumbs flying with the precision of a trader closing a position. "I'm serious. Full medical, housing, $150,000 post-birth. No strings." Her reply came at dawn. "Prove it." They met in a Starbucks on the Lower East Side, the kind with exposed brick and overpriced lattes that masked the neighborhood's underbelly. Elena arrived 10 minutes late, bundled in a threadbare coat that swallowed her slight frame, her backpack slung like armor. Close. She was younger than her photos suggested, with faint laugh lines around her mouth that spoke of joys snatched from the jaws of poverty. "You look like you could buy this whole block," she said, sliding into the booth without preamble, her voice carrying the lilt of East LA barrios transplanted to Brooklyn shelters. Mason chuckled, pushing a manila envelope across the table. Deed to a one-bedroom in Astoria, prepaid for a year, and a check for the first installment. Guilty. But I'm not here to play savior. I want a kid. You want stability. We both get what we need. Elena's fingers trembled as she flipped through the papers, her nails bitten to the quick. She'd been on the streets since her husband bailed 2 years back, leaving her with toddlers in tow and a mountain of medical debt from a miscarriage that nearly killed her. IVF? She asked, eyes narrowing. Mason nodded, explaining the process in bullet points, his sperm, and anonymous donors, her womb as the vessel. No genetic tie for her, just compensation and a clean break. I sign. You pay. Baby's yours day one, she murmured, pen hovering like a guillotine. The contract was ironclad, drafted by Mason's shark of a lawyer, with clauses for every contingency, addiction relapses, fetal distress, even emotional detachment. They shook on it under the hum of espresso machines, her grip firm despite the chill in her hands. As she walked out into the drizzle, Mason felt a flicker of something dangerous, hope. He texted his assistant to book the fertility clinic in Midtown, the one frequented by the 1%ers who treated conception like a spa day. Blood draws, ultrasounds, hormone shots. Elena's body became a project, her texts updating him like stock tickers. Follicles looking good. Craving pickles. Mason replied with Venmo transfers for cravings and Ubers to appointments, his world tilting toward fatherhood with the inexorability of a bull market. Weeks blurred into a rhythm. Mason threw himself into work, closing deals on green energy bonds while stealing glances at the sonogram app Elena shared, grainy blobs that promise personhood. His friends, a coterie of queer power players from Fire Island weekends, ribbed him gently. Daddy Mason? Careful, or you'll be changing diapers in a penthouse. He laughed it off. But alone, he pored over baby name books, settling on Elias for its old-world strength. It was during one such late night, scrolling Patagonia onesies on his iPad, that loneliness crept back in like fog off the Hudson. Enter Liam Riley. It was serendipity wrapped in a double shift at a hole-in-the-wall Irish pub in Hell's Kitchen, the kind where the pints were cheap and the crowd was a mix of off-Broadway actors and grizzled cabbies. Mason had ducked in to escape a client dinner gone sour, his tie loosened like a noose undone. The bar was a haze of cigarette smoke seeping from the alley door, New York in autumn, defiant against the smoking bans, and there was Liam, 29 and built like a welterweight champ who'd traded gloves for a bartender's apron, pouring a perfect Guinness with forearms corded from years of hauling kegs. Their eyes met over the foam. Mason's cool blue, Liam's warm hazel flecked with gold, like autumn leaves trapped in amber. Rough night? Liam asked, sliding the pint across scarred oak. His voice a low rumble with a faint Boston edge, the kind that evoked chowder and cobblestones. Mason, usually guarded as a vault, found himself spilling about the merger, the market jitters, the surrogate who was rewriting his DNA. Liam listened without the pity Mason braced for, his laugh lines